The very same story can feel suspenseful, romantic, or even unsettling just by changing the lens through which it's told. That lens is called point of view, and it's one of the most powerful tools a writer can use. Hi everyone, I'm Andrea from Bibisco, the novel writing software downloaded by more than 200,000 writers around the world to bring their stories to life. Today we are going to explore point of view, what it is, the different kinds you can use, how it affects tone and atmosphere, and how to choose the right one for your story. By the end of this video, you'll be ready to choose the perfect point of view and make your story shine. At its core, point of view is simply the position from which the story is told. You can think of it like placing a camera. If you put the camera inside the character's mind, we see their thoughts, fears, and emotions up close. If you keep it just behind their shoulder, we follow along but with some distance. And if you pull it back far enough, you can capture an entire battlefield, shifting between soldiers, generals, and spies. The position of that camera changes everything we, as the audience, get to experience. Point of view is not just a technical choice, it's the very voice of your story. Imagine sleeping on a pair of tinted glasses. With one pair, the world looks cold and distant. With another, it looks warm and alive. Nothing about the world has changed, only your perception of it. That's exactly what point of view does in writing. It decides who gets to speak, who sees the events, and who feels the emotions. Let's start with first person. In this point of view, the narrator is a character in the story. They use I or we. It feels personal, like opening someone's diary. You get intimacy and immediacy. When they are scared, you feel their fear. When they are in love, you fall in love with them. But it has limits. You only know what that character knows. If they misunderstand something or lie to themselves, the reader sees a distorted reality. That can frustrate a reader, but it can also be an incredible tool if you are building suspense or creating an unreliable narrator. Think of novels like The Catcher in the Rye or modern young adult fiction. First person is the heartbeat because it captures the raw subjective voice of the character. Then there is a second person, which is rare but striking. In this case, the narrator speaks to you. You walk into the room. You see the letter on the table. Your hands tremble as you unfold it. This style can make the reader feel like the main character, fully immersed in the stories. It shows up in interactive fiction, choose your own adventure books, and sometimes in experimental or self-help writing. It's powerful, but it can also feel odd if it isn't handled carefully. Done right, it's unforgettable. Third person limited is perhaps the most popular choice among novelists. The narrator says he, she, or they, but focuses on one character at a time. It's as if the camera follows that person closely, sometimes even catching glimpses of their inner thoughts. This point of view gives you balance between intimacy and control. Readers feel connected to the character, but the writer still has the flexibility to describe the world around them. It's especially effective in thrillers, mysteries, or dystopian stories, where uncovering the truth step by step, right alongside the protagonist, creates tension. And finally, third person omniscient. This is the all-knowing narrator. Here, you are not tied to one character. You can shift between different minds, explore multiple storylines, and even share information that the characters themselves don't know. Imagine reading, John waited at a cafe, unaware that Anna had already left the city. The reader now has more knowledge than the character, and that creates dramatic irony. This perspective is perfect for epic fantasy, historical sagas, or any story with a large cast and broad scope, but there is a risk. If you jump around too much, your readers can get disoriented. To make it work, you need a strong and consistent narrative voice to guide them through. And now you are going to see how the choice of point of view influences the tone and the atmosphere of your story. But before we dive in, hit the like button and subscribe, because from your point of view is the easiest way to never miss out our next tips. Point of view doesn't just decide who tells the story, it also shapes the tone and the atmosphere in a powerful way. Let's take the exact same situation. A character walks down a dark hallway. Depending on the point of view, the scene will feel completely different. If I write in first person, it might sound like this. I crept through the hallway, my heart racing so loudly, I was sure someone would hear it. Every shadow seemed alive, waiting for me to sleep. Here we are inside the character head. The fear is intimate, personal, and immediate. If I shift to second person, the effect changes completely. You step into the hallway, the silence presses against your ears, and your breath catches as if the house itself is watching you. Now the reader isn't watching the scene, they are living it. The story speaks directly to them, pulling them inside. In third person limited, the focus stays on a single character, but with a little more distance. Anna crept down the hallway, her palms damp as she imagined footsteps behind her. She forced herself not to turn around. Here we still feel Anna's fear, but it's framed by a narrator who observes her from just outside her mind. Finally, in the third person Omniscient, the atmosphere changes again. Anna crept down the hallway, heart hammering. She didn't know that, at the other hand, John was already waiting in the shadows, holding his breath. Now the narrator knows more than Anna does. This creates tension through dramatic irony. We see danger coming, even though the character doesn't. The hallway itself hasn't changed. What's changed is the lens through which we see it. And that's the power of point of view. The same event can become terrifying, immersive, suspenseful, or ominous depending entirely on who's telling the story. So how do you choose the right point of view for your story? The easiest way is to think about the kind of story you are telling, and especially whether it's character-driven or plot-driven. If your story is about characters' inner journey, growth, change, self-discovery, then intimacy is key. That's where first person shines. Writing in I makes the reader feel as if they are reading the character's diary, living every heartbeat, every doubt, every revelation. Third person limited can also work beautiful here. It still lets reader connect deeply with one character, but with a touch more distance and control. Both are strong choices for character-driven narratives like romance, young adult fiction, or psychological drama. Now, if your story is more about events than about inner change, if it's plot-driven, then the lens usually needs to be wider. Think of thrillers, dystopias, or mystery. Third person limited creates suspense because readers discover the truth only as the character does. And when the story spans multiple locations, multiple characters like fantasy sagas or historical fiction, third person Omniscient gives you the scope you need. It lets you move freely between viewpoints, reveal hidden plans, and build a bigger world around your plot. Second person is the wild card. It's rare, but it can be perfect when you want the reader to step directly into the story, especially if you are experimenting, writing interactive fiction, or breaking the fourth wall. So when you are choosing a point of view, think about what drives your story. If it's driven by characters, go for closeness and intimacy. If it's driven by plot, go for perspective and scope. Of course, choosing a point of view is only the first step. Using it well is another challenge. One of the most important things is consistency. If you are writing from Anna's perspective in third person limited, don't suddenly slip into John's head in the same scene. That confuses the reader. If you do want multiple points of view, plan your shifts. Give each character their own chapter or at least a clear break so the reader can adjust. Another tip is to use internal monologue wisely. Let us hear a character's thoughts, but don't overcrowd your story with every fleeting idea. Thoughts should reveal motivation or emotion, not replace action. And finally, remember to describe the world through your character's senses. What do they see, hear, smell, and feel? A bowl of soup isn't just soup if your characters say it smelled like burnt onions. That detail doesn't just describe the food, it reveals a reaction, her inner world. The tools you use can make all the difference in how effectively you handle point of view. With Bibisco, you can assign a point of view to every single scene of your novel. That means you always know exactly who is telling the story in each moment. And you can even analyze the overall use of point of view across the book, seeing how often you give the stage to one character or another, and spotting inconsistencies before they confuse your readers. But choosing a point of view is not just about tracking. Point of view is powerful because it creates intimacy between the reader and the character, and intimacy only works if your character feels real and three-dimensional. That's why Bibisco offers detailed character development tools. With the interview mode, for example, you answer dozens of questions that uncover your character's fears, desires, contradictions, and background. This depth makes the intimacy of your chosen point of view truly effective. Point of view is also connected to perspective. Sometimes you want to zoom in tightly on a single moment, and sometimes you need to step back and look at the broader flow of your story. That's where the timeline becomes invaluable. It allows you to lay out every event in strict chronological order, even if your chapters and scenes play with flashbacks or shifts in time. This way you can always see the bigger picture of your narrative, keep your story coherent, and guide readers smoothly through past and present without confusion. So, with bibisco, point of view is no longer just a technical choice. It becomes something you can plan, track, and enrich both through deeper characters and a clearer perspective on your whole story. Okay, we have reached the end of our journey through point of view, so let's wrap things up. First person pulls the reader right into the character's mind. Third person limited gives you focus and control. Omniscient opens up the entire world, and second person creates a bold, immersive experience. Think of point of view as a camera. Move it close and you capture raw emotion. Pull it back and you reveal the bigger picture. The choice is yours, and it will define how your story feels. And if you want to explore and manage point of view in your own writing, download Bibisco today. You will find the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy writing.